If I really wanted to wreck your life, first I would take away all your money. Then I would take away your banking account. And then I would collapse the currency that you work in so that even if you do make $100, it's only worth 50 next year and 25 the year thereafter. And it buys nothing in 36 to 48 months. So if you look at the plight of Venezuelans, they've got a collapsing currency. Many of them are unbanked. And of course, the property that they could hold in the country isn't holding value. So what I think is that Bitcoin represents hope to billions and billions of people around the world. And the right to property is a basic human right. And if we take away a bank of economic energy from humanity, it's the same as sentencing them to slow starvation. So obviously I'm a big believer that Bitcoin, is critical to spreading human rights around the world. And what you see right now is that in countries where the currency is collapsing, the banking system doesn't work, then people are turning to Bitcoin and they're using their mobile phones to hold a crypto asset in order to protect themselves. I really think that most central banks view it as an asset, a crypto asset. And so I think there's a narrative in the community that central banks are pushing back on it. I really don't think they are. If I look at all the utterances, I think Mark Carney has said on the record, it's a crypto asset. Jerome Powell has said on the record, it's like digital gold, it's like an asset, a store of value. The deputy governor of the Chinese central bank has said it's an asset. Christina Lagarde of the EU central bank has said, yeah, it's an asset. I mean, they might say it's a speculative asset, but currency is a medium of exchange and it's the province of governments. And in order to be a currency, you have to be deemed non-taxable upon transfer. And Bitcoin is not. Bitcoin is deemed property by the IRS, and most countries deem it as property, which makes it an asset, not a currency. So I think that the way the world is evolving, we're going to see 5 billion or more people with mobile phones and mobile wallets. And in that wallet is going to be a selection of currencies and a selection of assets. And the strongest currency is the dollar. And the strongest asset is Bitcoin. And in countries like Venezuela, they're going to lose their currency privileges. And their citizens are going to default to the dollar as a medium of exchange. But the only way that you can deploy dollars as a medium of exchange to billions of people across hundreds of countries and tens of thousands of banking systems or application networks is if you have a global settlement network, which is a shared monetary protocol, and that is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the global monetary network that allows everybody on Earth to store their economic energy over long periods of time. And it also allows everyone to synchronize those mobile wallets in Zimbabwe and Venezuela and Nigeria and India and Argentina and the US and China and the like. And so I see an emerging economy with a digital asset called Bitcoin and a digital currency, likely the dollar, but if not the dollar, perhaps the renminbi, right? And if not the Chinese currency, then perhaps the euro. At the end of the day, the winner is going to be the strongest currency, which will come from the strongest country and the strongest economic network, which will be the US. And the winning asset will be the strongest crypto asset with the greatest security and the greatest acceptance and the most stability, and that will be Bitcoin. Most sophisticated people that have studied it realize they're crypto assets. Bitcoin is a crypto asset. It's not a cryptocurrency. It's a tragic misnomer. And because people call it a cryptocurrency, then it lends itself to a shallow criticism that it's not good as a currency because the central banks will ban it, and because the tax treatment is poor, and because the transaction rate is low. But again, those are all red herrings. It's not a currency, nor does it need to be a currency, right? Anybody thinking about it for even a few seconds realizes that if there's a taxable event every time I transfer it to you, it can't be a currency. So
Right.
so no, it's not a currency, it's an asset. And if you think of it as an asset, it's very helpful, because then you realize it's not competing with the dollar and the euro. It's competing with gold and silver. It's competing with bearer instruments, and to a certain degree, it's competing with bonds as a store of value, and it's competing with ETFs like the S&P 500 index as a store of value. And once you understand it that way, then you're not so afraid anymore, because you understand the regulatory framework that comes to Bitcoin is the same regulatory framework that comes to gold, silver, and S&P 500 indexes. It's just know your customer, anti-money laundering regulations. And if you're afraid to buy Bitcoin because you're afraid of regulation, you shouldn't be, because if it is regulated pari passu or at parity with these other assets, it will create it'll create a avalanche of institutional money flow into the asset class, because it'll simply normalize the treatment in the Western world. The IRS in 2014 deemed it to be property.
Right. But
And
I
as
mean, if they,
property, it means that when you transfer it, you owe a capital gains tax. So there is like zero chance the IRS is going to reverse that. It is property. It's not a currency. Yeah, it's not very wise to transfer Bitcoin to pay for anything. I mean, the only, if you were to say to me, I can pay you in Bitcoin, it doesn't make a lot of sense because the transactions are slow. But if I had highly appreciated Bitcoin, I would be accelerating a short or long-term capital gains bill in order to pay you. And so the only way that I would pay you in Bitcoin would be I would take $100, I would buy Bitcoin, and then 1 minute later I would transfer the Bitcoin to you, so that the basis in the Bitcoin is equal at the time I acquired it and the time that I transferred it. So I think that this is a vestige from the first decade, when there were a lot of retail users of Bitcoin, and before they understood the law. But the law has been very clear in the US since 2014.